Hello, happy innovators. How you doing, guys? We have finally made it to the 55th episode of the Singularity Podcast. I commemorate you for joining me today, sticking with me, and do a little bit of talking today to wrap this celebration up. You know, the other day, I was eating from a bag of peanut M&Ms. I love peanut M&Ms. They're one of my weaknesses. And, you know, I'm sitting there reaching into this bag. I'm digging through it, grabbing a couple, popping them in my mouth. And as I look into the bag, you know, I kind of think to myself, M&Ms, peanut M&Ms to be specific, are a lot like people, you know? They all basically look the same, you know? They're all oval shaped and they have the M&M's logo stamped on them, you know, in white, candy covered chocolate peanut. But it occurred to me that they're not the same. They look the same, they have the same characteristics, but they're all different from each other. Every single M&M in that bag was different from the next. And I know you're probably laughing, right? Like, wow, man, that's like really deep, man, you know? But think about it. It's true, isn't it? People are a lot like peanut M&Ms. We all kind of look the same, you know, for the most part. We all have a nose, 2 eyes, 2 ears, a mouth, a head, arms, legs, you know, with the rare exception, you know, from time to time. But for the most part, we're all very much the same. Now, but we're all very different at the same time. So I thought about that as the at least starting point for a Singularity podcast, especially because today I'm going to talk about doing your own thing, you know, being your own person. And I have a lot to say on this issue, you know. I've always been the kind of person who was really doing my own thing. Granted, from time to time, I go along with the crowd and, you know, just kind of submit a little bit, have some fun or whatever, you know. But for the most part, on a day-to-day basis, or really when you look at my entire life, you know, I've always been kind of doing it a little bit different, or sometimes a lot different than the people that are around me. And it's not because I'm rebellious. You know, I'm not a rebel. I'm not angry or dissatisfied necessarily with, you know, civilization or something. I don't have a problem with mankind, okay? But I just have a tendency to kind of notice things, I think, that other people don't really notice. Or at least if they notice them, they don't really talk about it or act on it. And that doesn't mean that I'm better than anyone else. In fact, more often than not, it just means I'm just pretty damn weird, you know, and I'm happy for that. I am. I'm glad that I'm different. But it was not a conscious choice. Okay, it's just kind of how the cookie crumbled. And it doesn't mean that I'm smart necessarily either. Because a lot of the time, I can say from experience, I mean, it is my life, right? That I have sometimes went in the wrong direction, you know, for better or for worse. And you kind of live with the results and, you know, it is what it is. We make the best of it, you know. It's kind of funny because a long time ago, now, I went through a period of time where I had just broken up with a very long-term girlfriend. A very long-term relationship had ended, and I really was kind of going through something. I mean, it was really a difficult breakup. It was very sad, having been with somebody for so long, and it ended on bad terms, even though we did, to a certain degree, remain friends afterwards. You know, it was embarrassing, and it was sad, and I was betrayed, and all those things. Something I'm guilty of doing myself, though, so I have to kind of, take it for what it is. Like, it's not like I'm incapable of doing that to someone else. So, I was going through this thing, and up until that point that I was with this person and we had broken up, I had kind of lived my life a certain way and by a certain standard. And I had kind of become known for that, okay, in my circle of friends, or so-called friends, or whatever. And even to a certain degree, my family, that I was going for something, and I had standards, and there were certain things I would not do, I did not do. I was proud of that, and it stayed that way for a very long time, up until this period of time that I'm telling you about now. And it was at this time that I consciously made a couple of decisions about my future, that I was going to kind of do an experiment a little bit, where I would kind of step out of the life that I was living, the way I was living it up until that point, and kind of like try new things that I had refused to try in the past, and just kind of go with that for a little while and see how it played out. Now, it was like science to me, okay? It wasn't fun and games, it was like science. I wanted to change, and I wanted to see things from a new perspective, okay? And at the time, a lot of the people that were close to me were confused by what was going on, even though, at least as far as I'm concerned, they shouldn't have been. They saw what I was going through. They saw how I felt. Really, all they really needed to do was just ask me what was going on. But because people don't usually operate that way, I just went about my business, and, my friends, my family, friends, the people that were close to me, were just kind of observing and talking amongst themselves about this strange behavior from Mike, And this experiment went on for a while, and what I found in the end, well, first of all, it was not necessarily a positive experience, okay? That's the first thing. The conclusion was, it was kind of a mistake, okay? I should have just stayed the course and, instead of trying this new approach to things, I would have done myself a service by just, staying consistent. But even though it was a bad path, a bad decision, I did grow from it, okay? I did learn from it. And, I would literally write down notes. Like, as I lived my life out, I would be taking notes about, I tried this, here's how it resulted, this was what happened, this is who was there, this is how I felt. I was journaling this whole experience. And this went on for a long time. It went on for probably about 5 years, maybe a little bit more. And, I would go a little bit more each time, kind of just trying a new thing. Most of the time, negative things, okay? Like going with my base instinct, not doing the right thing, not making the right choice. Trying to see what it's like when you live your life making the wrong choices. Okay? And seeing if there was any kind of benefit to doing it that way. And I was wrong. It was not good. So, I would go out into the world and experience something. I would write down the details. I would write down the experience. And I would go back later and I would analyze and review and make decisions and learn, from the experience. But it was kind of funny because, the people in my periphery and the people that were close to me who knew me were confused by it. And as I found out later, they were kind of like talking about me behind my back. And I know this because my older brother, Steve, was the first one to really kind of say something to me, And ironically, this was like many, many years after this experiment had ended. And trust me, it needed to end. It was really kind of not something I would recommend to other people to do. I wound up, I think, eventually doing a lot of damage to my character and my reputation, even though it was really something I did not do with any sense of permanence or something. The people around me didn't really understand that, and no one really bothered to ask. So the experiment commenced and it ended, and I stopped and started to go back onto the path that I wanted to be on, and I should have been on the whole time. I wish I could say no harm, no foul, but that's not true. I did hurt feelings, and I did lose friends, and I did betray, and I betrayed myself too. But the experiment ended, and a lot of the people that cared about me saw me as a hypocrite. And that's kind of like what my brother was conveying to me, that a lot of the people were critical of me because I had been, so against this in the past, and now all of a sudden I was trying it, and now I'm a hypocrite, And you know what? We're all hypocrites. And I was kind of like thinking to myself anyway, like, this is my life. Like, why are you scrutinizing my life? But, whatever, it had to end. So, honestly, that's something I never talked about before with anyone other than my wife. But to me, it's kind of like an illustration of the way my brain works, like the way I'm approaching this life. Sometimes I take it seriously, not too seriously, but I do take it seriously, and I want to become a better person and all those things, Yay, it's happy that I'm growing and I want to learn, But there you go. It's an example of the point I'm trying to make about doing your own thing. I have a few more examples that I could cite for you here, and I'm going to today, because that's what I'm talking about today. How weird can I get? One thing I can say, that most people, even right now, like most of the people that are close to me and stuff, like family, they don't really understand, because I live so far away from them, that it has been now, let's see, it's 2019. So since the year probably about 2008, I want to say, 2008, my wife and I have been living in a situation where we have not watched regular television since 2008. We have not been drinking, we've not been drinking city water for over 10 years. We drink well water, we don't really have a smartphone. I definitely don't have one. My wife, for the sake of her career, really kind of needs one. But we both kind of have a different kind of approach to that kind of thing, to the technologies. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that we are very different from a lot of other couples in those ways, and other ways too, but in those ways, and honestly, from time to time, I kind of wonder sometimes how much that has actually benefited us in a way that we don't even really truly grasp or understand. Like the idea of going for a decade without watching regular television. I mean, think about that. When we say it to other people, they're like, what? Like, how can you do that? And it's really quite simple. It's not difficult to do, especially, with the internet and YouTube. The majority of what we've been watching for entertainment over the past 10 years is, mostly internet content. We haven't had regular programming in our house for 10 years. So it's easy to do. And we've done it. And, I can't help but wonder sometimes, especially when I see how some of the people that I've known for a long time, how it seems that their intellect has suffered a little. That sounds bad, doesn't it? There's probably a better way of saying it. I should probably stop and try to think of it, but they seem to have slowed down, okay? Very gradually, a decade's worth of year by year, day by day, slowing down. And not that my wife and I are particularly smarter than anyone else. It's just we seem to notice with people that we know very well how they seem to be slowing down. Their thought processes have slowed down. Now, I hear a lot of talk, okay, amongst the truthers and the conspiratorious people on YouTube about the dumbing down of America and things like that. That there's things in the water, and the smartphone is actually doing something to your brain where, it's affecting you in some negative way. Like your intellect, your motor activity, is actually being diminished by these devices somehow, and how watching programmed television and blah, 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 blah. Okay, I don't know for sure. It may or may not be true. But if you were to ask me and my wife and our experience having refrained from all of those normal things for as long as we have, I don't know. Sometimes it's a little bit shocking, some of the things that we notice. And for the most part, we laugh about it because it's really, not a big deal. But it does make me worry a little bit for the future, if you know what I mean. Like, okay, let's just say for the sake of discussion that the culture in America is one of a gradual dumbing down of people. Okay, let's say that the conspiracy theories are true. This is actually happening. What does it mean for the future? And the answer is not good things, Again, it doesn't mean that we're better than anyone else, because we're certainly not. And I wouldn't say that we're the most intelligent people that we know. But we do notice this lag, real slight lag, sometimes not so light lag in people's attention span, their ability to function cognitively, I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be way off, but I don't know. I don't think so. And another thing that I can say about doing your own thing, and in this case, my wife and I kind of doing our own thing. Something that we've developed over the past 10 years is this method or formula of disposing of our trash a certain way. Now, what does that mean? Okay, the situation is such in our household where consciously, okay, we have developed and refined this way of disposing of trash where we split everything up. Okay, now we didn't invent it. Okay, I know that, but we have developed it a lot and refined it, and now it's, normal in our home. But we split the trash up like paper, recyclables, compostables, and then just plastic trash that needs to go into the landfill. Okay, we have tried to eliminate as much of our quote unquote carbon footprint as much as we could. Now, I know that right now that's a political gesture, okay? But trust me, okay? That's not the case here, okay? It's just a simple matter of actually a spiritual practice called being a steward of the earth, okay? Like, we are mandated by God, by Almighty God, to not make a mess of this place. The idea is to leave something behind for the next generation and show honor to God through taking care of our planet and taking care of our environment. Now, what this means now. No, it's not what we're doing. It's not political. It's nothing to do with Trump or any of that stuff. It's just the way we've always been doing it, as long as we could be doing it. And I gotta tell you, we have refined this method so well that now the amount of trash that comes out of our house is enough to fill a garbage bag, a single garbage bag, every 6 months. No joke. Now think about that. Now, we do recycle a lot. We burn a lot of paper, the paper garbage that we have, and we compost any of the vegetation or the extra, scraps and things like that. We put it out for the animals, and we put it into the soil that grows our food. And the paper that we burn, the carbon that's made from it, that gets stirred into the mix too. It gets composted. And like I said, it's like once every 6 months we make enough trash to fill a garbage bag. Okay? And we've been doing it that way for about 10 years. And little by little, every year, it gets a little bit better. We figure out another way. We think about another thing, what to do with the coffee grounds, right? From their coffee, which reminds me, I'm going to take a sip right now. Oh my gosh, is that good? But I'll take those coffee grounds from this cup of coffee that I'm drinking right now, and I'll compost them. They make great compost. And I know that sounds all tree hugger and granola to you. I know. But, hey, honestly, there's a part of me that embraces some of that. I'm not one thing all the time. And it's certainly not political to me. So, there you go. It's one of those things. Doing our own thing. Now, another thing I want to talk about when it comes to doing my own thing, and this is kind of a little interesting anecdote to me. This is something that I've come to the realization about over the past few years, is that, I do work from home, and I do recording, and I run the record label. I do all the stuff I do, this podcast and music and all that stuff. I do it from home. I stay home. My wife goes to work. She leaves the home to work. And what that means is that really most of the time, a lot of the domestic responsibilities kind of fall on my shoulders, which is only fair, right? And I don't mind. But what's cool about that is that all of the jobs I had when I was younger, before my wife and I started the book business and before I started to sell my music online, a lot of the jobs I had were kind of like grunt work jobs, typical struggling musician jobs, like dishwasher, cook, line cook, kitchen manager, construction work, land clearing, all these things I've even talked about before in other episodes, right? But what's weird or what's kind of cool is that because I am home and I work from the home and the domestic responsibilities are mine, all of those jobs that I had when I was younger have all kind of, in some weird way, have trained me to do what I'm doing right now. So, we live on a property and sometimes we need firewood, and so someone's got to chop the tree, cut it up, chop it into firewood. Well, I know how to do that. I did it for a living for a little while. Cooking meals. I know how to cook. I learned how to cook. I was a kitchen manager for a little while. I know my way around a kitchen and a cutting board, Wow, really glad I had that job because, now that's how I feed us. And that's not to say my wife doesn't do some cooking, because she does. And let me tell you, when she does, oh man, she knows what she's doing, But for the most part, on a day-to-day basis, it's really kind of up to me. And, the same goes for so many other aspects of this life. So I am kind of like in some way putting into practice full time, okay, by doing this music thing and doing it the way it's being done. I am kind of in my own way doing my own thing. And it's something that I'm very proud of. It's something that I enjoy most of the time. Sometimes it's a little difficult because it's a lot of work, a lot of labor, but I've always kind of liked that kind of thing, But there you go. I wanted to share that with you today. I wanted to cap off this 5-episode run with the story of me kind of doing my own thing, And maybe in the course of, the next few days or something, think about that idea I mentioned about people being like peanut M&Ms, And maybe, do yourself a favor, go grab a bag, crack it open and enjoy, because I'll tell you what, I'm gonna. So anyway, my happy innovators, thank you for being with me for 50 episodes, especially a few choice people that I could name, maybe I should name, but Stu, you know who you are, and Steven, and let's see, who else? And no, I'm not going to name people. Anyway, so for now, everybody, have a great week. Thanks for sticking with me. This is Mike Bostwick from Pipe Choir Records signing off. And remember, folks, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. Take it easy.